Imagine Earth's got a secret mini moon crashing through space, packed with trillions of dollars of precious metals, just hanging out right in our own backyard. Well, back in 2024, Asteroid 2024 PT5 swung by, orbiting us for up to 2 crazy months. Turns out this does happen at times, again and again. And the next one could send us into a full-blown space gold rush frenzy. The little rock wasn't just passing through, though. It was a jackpot floating above our heads. And no, this isn't some sci-fi plot. It's real. It could be the biggest fortune hunt humanity's ever seen. Ready to hear how? Well, mini moons are like fleeting cosmic freebies. They orbit Earth briefly, offering a rare chance to snatch precious metals closer than ever. These tiny space hustlers sometimes can pack platinum, cobalt, gold, metals worth more than entire countries' gross national products. NASA's estimates that the prize could top $1.5 trillion just for a handful of asteroids. This isn't a pipe dream. It's a treasure hunt that can fuel everything from smartphones to green energy tech, straight from the heavens to your pocket. Well, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter is a cosmic junkyard full of metallic riches begging to be mined. These rocks are leftovers from the solar system's chaotic birth, full of ingredients for powering our tech-driven world. But Earth's gravity buried most of these heavy metals deep underground here on terra firma, making mining costly and complicated. I mean, guys, the pressures, the temperatures, it's off the charts when you go trying to mine down. But now these mini moons, they could be a shortcut serving up rare metals on a silver platter. Really? Or just rocky dust. Yeah, rock dust spinning in orbit. But even that can be valuable in space where you need shielding and other resources. Anyway, the mini moon's magic trick. So mini moons aren't just your average space rocks. They're rare hitchhikers snagged by Earth's gravity, giving us a fleeting chance to study and maybe capture them. Maybe. PT5 didn't make a perfect lap, but it showed us the potential where metal-rich moonlet mimicking our own Selene satellite may be available, even if only for a moment. These orbs, they're Willy Wonkas of outer space, dropping golden tickets into our lap, if we can grab them. Anyway, mining a spinning asteroid hurling through space sounds like sci-fi rocket science, and it is. But past missions spent millions to grab minuscule amounts of samples from the moon and even tinier samples from nearby asteroids recently. Lunar gravity is no help. Lunar regolith, what you might call lunar soil, which is not soil, it's just a beat up and powdered rock. But, hey, it kicks up dust clouds of rock, like shattered fragments of glass that gum up machines faster than you can say space jackpot. But mini moons, well, they're just the right size and close enough to finally make asteroid mining potentially a reality relatively soon instead of a fantasy. So, we got to talk about, why go for the mini moon, not the moon? Or, why go for why not go out for some asteroid farther away? We might do that. All of the above. But see, the advantage of a asteroid that's really close to Earth is what you call a delta V in rocketry. That's the change in velocity you have to put into a rocket to reach it, which is really established by how much fuel you burn. And fuel, especially in higher orbits in space, costs a lot of money to get it there. So you want to use as little fuel as you can and use it as efficiently as you can. So when you go to the moon, which is nearby, thinking about the moon, well, it's always there. We know where it is. It's like a big potential future filling station in the sky for future space development and exploration. But you got to go down a gravity well when you get there. You got to go down the gravity. You got to land on it, keep from colliding with it, and hope you don't turn over like so many other landers have done lately. And then to take the material off the moon, you got to blast off again, or maybe in the future build an electromagnetic accelerator known as a coal gun, which can propel lunar regolith into space. Now, I just did a video recently talking about that and warning why if we let China go to the moon first and we're not there with them, they might weaponize that very effectively and gain complete control of space. You ever heard of the moon's a harsh mistress? Yeah. Well, asteroids can be a bit of a threat too if weaponized, but the thing about it though is there's other things you can do to improve the delta V. It make asteroid mining practical. Is you don't just have to burn fuel to get out, and well, when you're in orbit, see, if you're in orbit going along, it takes more and more energy to go to a higher orbit. I should have a rocket with me instead of just this thing. There we go. So if you're going to higher orbits, you got to burn more fuel to get higher up. But when you're going to slow down and come back to Earth, you got to turn it around and burn fuel to get that lower orbit and then to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. You're burning fuel both ways. Dr. John Lewis, University of Arizona, he was a big fan of using aerobraking. Basically, you put a trajectory that puts the object flying through a part of the atmosphere and let the atmospheric drag slow it down. So you build a device. It might be like a big heat shield or a big balloon that would slow you down and let the atmosphere make up for not having to burn so much fuel. You got to have mass to lift your aerobraking, unless you can build some of it from material from the mini moon or an asteroid, which requires a bit of sophistication if you're going to do that. But it's with nanotechnology coming down, it might be achievable, not too distant future, or if the numbers are good enough, and Dr. John Lewis said it was, we could actually build the air brakes and take them out there and bring them back. You would save so much fuel and the re-entry phase, and bring it, slowing it down to get it in Earth's orbit or to bring it back to Earth, unless you want to use the materials in space itself. So there are a lot of things to consider for that. Now, there's some interesting plans to bag the space gold. So forget landing. That's a good thing about asteroids. Future stream, you don't have to land on one. You just fly up to it. Well, future stream of giant space nets to snag these tumbling treasures. Tethered Unlimited design satellite spider webs to trap and tow asteroids into safer orbits. Although funding was cut short, the request. Ideas fly fast and wild in this wild frontier. And then there was Transastro, which means across space. Anyway, they were pushing the envelope a bit further. They were talking about wrapping asteroids in giant plastic bags like cosmic cling wrap. And then melting them. Melting the ice, that is. Not the asteroid, but just the ice inside. With concentrated sunlight to leave glimmering metals behind. They want to get rid of the ice. That's valuable too, by the way. It might be used for propulsion purposes. So think about how you approach that. But anyway, it's asteroid alchemistry with a tech twist. But you're not just going to go out and lasso an asteroid and bring it back, unless it's tiny. Because, tiny, like, a few meters wide. Because an asteroid packs a lot of momentum. It's way beyond your imagination. And you're not just going to fly some little rocket up to a big old asteroid, unless their size is about like this, and then, attach it and boost it off somewhere. Rockets are grossly inefficient. And two, that's a lot of fuel. The momentum of most asteroids is off the charts. You're just not going to do that. But what you might do is go up and mine pieces off and bring them back. Smaller, real small asteroids, you might do that with. I mean, really small ones, the ones that wouldn't be a threat if they hit the Earth. And they could be packed with the resources too. But there are other things that might be interesting, like if it were a carbonaceous chondrite or a burned out comet, there might be enough materials in there you can make fuel from to change its orbit or bring some of the stuff back. One idea that I think is interesting is with a near Earth asteroid. I don't know if it would be practical from the main belt, but with a near Earth asteroid, if you know, they tumble in many different axes at once. So if you could put some little engines on it that use material from the asteroid, and we just drop the asteroid on Earth, it's the end of time. Anyway, if you could stabilize that asteroid to one spin axis, we use this little moon. If you could do that, you might be able to attach a coil gun to the asteroid and use the asteroid's own mass, accelerate it to an incredible velocity using solar rays, or maybe a small modular nuclear reactor. You're not going to do this with a giant asteroid, by the way, but it might be larger, than what you would lasso. You might could put some delta V into it by using its own mass as reaction. Now, Dr. Gerard K. O'Neill used to favor taking space shuttle external tanks and chewing them up to use them as reaction mass for asteroids to establish a lunar mining system to take people and materials up to the moon and back. Well, not to landing, but just to get them there and back for the transit, because with a electromagnetic acceleration, you can accelerate the particles really fast and get a very efficient engine. So I saw Dr. O'Neill at the University of Fairbanks back in 1981. And I asked him, I said, Dr. O'Neill, I'm really concerned about this approach because of you're throwing out a bunch of chunks in space, and this stuff could be a hazard to space operations. You think collisions, you think Kessler limits and things like that, a huge hazard. He said, no, the whole plan is to put a powder mill up to crush it to a powder, and then the solar wind would just sweep it out into the solar system. Not a bad idea, except, that's maybe he is a scientist underestimated the engineering challenge. I'm an engineer of development of a powder mill in orbit. It's theoretical doable and far more doable today with robotics advancements than it might have been back in the 70s when he was entertaining these ideas. I met him in 81. So you might could do the same way with the asteroid materials, although if you're at the main belt, you don't care, or far out, you probably don't care if you got a bunch of little pellets. They'll still get swept away eventually. But, the powder mill concept might be a prospect. So, there may be ways to get these things, and it's going to depend on what it is and how, a train of light cells that use of the minimum exchange from reflecting light might be good if you had a whole lot of them just to pick pieces off of a asteroid and bring back little pieces at a time. Because a light cell, ginormous, huge thing, is only going to take a small mass, but requires very little fuel, no fuel, except what it takes to launch it, because it's using sunlight. So that might be something that will work. But if you're around an asteroid, it's got a lot of junk or flying around, it would rip a solar cell to pieces. So you have to make sure the environment is stable around that asteroid. So then there's the Ensman drive. That might be the answer. And then some of us think there's other technologies that's off the books. But in any event, so the idea is that these asteroids could be gotten. You're just not going to lasso any asteroid of any appreciable size, as these guys in these other concepts we're talking about. Tiny ones, tiny, tiny, tiny. I mean, something on the size of a rocket. And there's plenty of those actually that do pass close to Earth. So those, but they usually have a pretty big delta V on them already, or velocity. So, it's not delta V, but velocity. You'd have to put a delta V into them to decrease their speed, to catch them into Earth's orbit. And then you would probably want a bunch of people regulating this, or somebody watching to make sure somebody's not trying to drop one down on your head. That would be a very bad day. But there could be exclusive zones to establish these things, and I'm sure the Space Force would have an active interest in this. I would suggest a great place to bring them down is the Gulf of Mexico. You can haul them back up the rivers in Alabama where there's all these steel mills and things like that and process them. Go up the 10-ton uh, waterway, get up the Tennessee River, get them up toward Huntsville, Alabama area, or up where they got the old Iuka rocket motor plant. A lot of things can be done. You got a lot of rocket scientists in that area too, and steel mills, like in Decatur, manufacturers. All right, all that aside. So, you know, why could asteroids topple Earth's markets? Could it? Yeah. China controls up to 90% of rare earth metals, sparking a global scramble. Yeah, we're desperate for these right now because they have embargoed us from them. Picture this: space mine cobalt powering your next electric car, or platinum fueling hydrogen cars. Yeah, just imagine that for your catalyst in your fuel cells. Uh, but supply surges can crash prices. Yeah, so you bring a whole lot of stuff on the market at once. What do you expect? Just like an oil boom. Mining mini moons will be high stakes game of supply, demand, and space age economics. The winners could rewrite history for how humanity powers its future. And it's often been said the first trillionaire would make his $1 trillion by mining asteroids. Although I think Elon just figured out how to corner that market before then. All that aside, he wants to go to Mars. And maybe he can pay for it that way, but you know, Mars is way out there. There's just not much you can economically bring back from Mars to establish a business plan. You can do that with the moon, and I can write business plans for the moon and asteroid mining. So anyway, like I said, forget Mars colonies. The real space moguls are eyeing mini moons. China's largest mission plans to drill into ice and rock, reaching for hidden riches, are there. So NASA's 2029 Psyche mission targets a metal giant, possibly the richest asteroid yet, because they think it can be worth trillions of dollars. On the surface, it can make every one of us a multi-millionaire, trillionaire, even, but it would crash the market price. So, well, it ain't quite that well, but we could all have a much more prosperous future if we could really get at this. So, this isn't a new gold rush, but it is. And everybody wants in if they can get in. Space is no longer the final frontier, it's the next big market. So, what lies beyond the panic and the hype? Asteroid mining promises resources, jobs, and the kind of science fiction breakthroughs that reshape economies and industries. But to make it real, tech must leap forward. Funding must flow, and space agencies must dance on the razor's edge of risk and reward. Will humanity grab these cosmic coins or just let them slip through our fingers? The next mini moon could decide. So, like I said, this is technically possible. Dr. John Lewis has written several big books detailing how this could be done. And I can see other market opportunities for things that aren't in the metals. Yeah, the asteroids usually come in three basic categories. You can divide it up far more than that. You basically have carbonaceous chondrites, which are rich in volatile materials, which would be important if you want to live in space. You need oxygen, you need carbon stuff to grow food in, fuels. There is the metallic asteroids. Both are more rare. And metallic asteroid is what made this big crater a 2-mile drive from me, a 2-hour drive from me, called Meteor Crater. Oh yeah, and John Lewis is down the road from me, about a 4-hour drive in the University of Arizona. The metal asteroids exist. They've been hit by one right close by, so they're out there. Now there's a lot of them that are just what we call stony chondrites. They're just basically rock. But we're finding interesting things that every little asteroid brought samples back from so far, including precursors to life, evidence for water having flown, maybe when they were in bigger parent bodies in the past. A lot of interesting treasures we're finding in these asteroids. So That is where my real hope for space mining lies. If mighty mini moon succeeds, it won't just rewrite economics, it'll rewrite the story of humanity's reach. The moonlight might soon glint off of asteroid gold bars, not just rocks. And somewhere out there, space entrepreneurs are ready, sharpening their nets or their engines. Anyway, so don't blink. Space mining is no longer a distant dream, especially with SpaceX and especially with New Glenn, Blue Origin. Companies are working to bring the cost of getting to space dramatically down. Makes it a lot more feasible. And with the robotics advances and technology, yeah. So follow every bold step, wild idea and breakthrough, because the next cosmic jackpot could be closer than anyone dares to imagine. Just an asteroid that got captured as a mini moon coming around the Earth. Well, if you enjoyed this, subscribe, bang the bell, and click all. I'll bring you many more interesting stories here on Galactic Gregs. I'm Greg Allison with Galactic Gregs, and thank you all for watching.